so stupid.
Joe.
What?
I
What?
need you to shut up for a second.
Okay.
Donkey Kong Country is coming to Nintendo Switch.
That's amazing.
But it's only Donkey Kong Country 1. Where's Diddy Kong? Oh, wait, no. Diddy's still there in the first one. Never mind. Okay, I'm still happy. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on this steaming hot edition of Cup of Joe's. My name is Joe Brown. I am joined by my best friend, Joe Parian. Episode 54, Joe. How are you feeling?
Oppressed. To wear a mask all the time now.
Oh my god, shut up.
My freedoms are being so stifled.
Listen, I was going to say that I'm feeling great because Donkey Kong Country is coming to Nintendo Switch a day before my birthday, okay?
Well, that's great for you. I still have to wear a mask.
Oh my god. Anyway, as we swiftly move on from Joe's propaganda, let's talk about some other Nintendo games, not Donkey Kong Country. One of our favorites here to talk about in our podcast, which is Pokemon, specifically Pokemon Sword and Shield. As I don't think we've had a chance to talk about the DLC yet, right, Joe?
That is correct. You were the one who bought it, so you're gonna have to tell the lovely people about it.
Okay.
Because you told me that I might not like it, so I did not want to waste $30 on it.
I said it might not be worth it. You might have liked it, but it might not have been a well worth endeavor for you. But who cares? Because games are all going to be $500, and you're just gonna have to suck it up and take it, right?
We'll get to that in a little.
Oh, we certainly will get there, Joe. But the other Pokemon,
I know we will. I know we will. Anyway,
it's gonna be a fun discussion. The other Pokemon game that was announced recently was Pokemon Unite, which is a MOBA similar to League of Legends or Heroes of the Storm, and we'll talk about that as well. Then Joe's going to update us on Animal Crossing because my town is completely full of weeds because I have not played that game in months, but Joe has experienced the new summer updates that New Horizons has brought to the game. And then our final story is what we were alluding to. There's a news story about how the price increase of AAA games from $60 to $70 is inevitable in the new console generation, and we're going to have a nice discussion, and I'm definitely not going to get very very passionate about that discussion.
You already are.
So anyway, let's start with Pokemon, Joe. So we had the first expansion of the DLC for Pokemon Sword and Shield, which was the Isle of Armor, and then we have the Crown Tundra coming in what we think is November, which is going to be the second half, where all the legendaries come back and extra different raid options and things like that. So I was actually really excited for this. Like, they had a trailer maybe a week or so before the DLC came out, and then they actually had one on the day. They had one on the day of release. They had a Pokemon update that had Pokemon Snap in it, and info on the DLC, and Pokemon brushing your teeth. Pokemon Smile. That's what it was called, where you brush your teeth with it.
Brush your teeth with Pikachu.
Right.
You want to brush your teeth with Pikachu?
No, I actually haven't. I haven't done it. I have brushed my teeth. I have not played Pokemon Smile though.
Oh no, I'm asking you if you want to brush your teeth with Pikachu. That is the question. Don't say that you haven't played it. The question stands: do you, Joseph Nancy Brown, want to brush your teeth with Pikachu? Your middle name is Nancy. Don't lie and tell the people that it's not. It is Joseph Nancy Brown. So tell the people what they want to hear.
I can tell you a funny story off air about the name Nancy with me, but I'll keep it off the internet for now. Yes, no. I would be interested in brushing my teeth with Pikachu.
What about Charizard? Would you like to brush your teeth with Charizard?
Well, no, there's probably not enough room in the bathroom for both of us, you know? Charizard's a pretty big boy.
So he's a beefy lad?
Yep.
The beefy lads need to brush their teeth too, Joseph.
That's true. It's very important. He does have some super hot fire coming out, so maybe he needs to brush his teeth so he doesn't burn ash anymore. But so let's talk about the Isle of Armor real quickly, Joe. Let's go through it. I was really excited when it came out. One of my favorite Pokemon, Politoed, was one of the few, I think 140 or so Pokemon that were reintroduced during this DLC. And then we're going to have even more Pokemon come back in November in the second half of the DLC. And this really opened up a lot of strategies for team building for VGC for competitive Pokemon because there were there were old favorites returning. Like, for example, Terrakion, a very famous offensive Pokemon that's like really fast, really strong hitting. Like, that's returned to the format. Amoonguss is a very defensive Pokemon that's able to really annoy your opponent if they don't deal with it properly, and like that's back. Then there's some rain cores like Politoed and Kingdra that have returned to the metagame. So I was really excited. I was more excited in the metagame aspects than the actual playing through the DLC story portion of it, if you get what I'm saying. And then, you know, we all quickly learn that this DLC's, you know, if you're trying to stretch it out, maybe 4 hours, most likely you're going to beat it in around 3 hours or less, which is somewhat disappointing considering it starts off really strong. You go to the train station in the first town that you visit in the game, and it takes you over to a separate area, the Isle of Armor, that has its own like different raid den, like how there's the big open area on the main map. It has that with different raid circles and beams of light and Pokemon that can come out and you know, you can try to interact with them in the wild, and you see their sprites and everything. So it has that portion that the wild area does in the mainland, and that's pretty much it. Like, that was the disappointing part for me because I was expecting more kind of interaction with the legendary Pokemon Kubfu, and then he evolves into Urshifu. I was expecting more lore about the Isle of Armor and why it's like disconnected from the main island, and like there were some nice things, like they said like Leon also went through this dojo training that we're going through, and he's a champion and we're a champion, like some things like that. But it was legitimately just a wild area. There wasn't a huge story. You fought your new rival a couple of times, and you got the Kubfu, and then they give you Kubfu at level 10, and Kubfu apparently like evolves through, I think it's happiness, and you had to be level 70 to beat the trial, the Kubfu trial at the end of the story, because the last Pokemon in that building was level 70. So you essentially just have to use 60 levels worth of rare candies and give him and like feed him some like food at like a Pokemon camp, like give him some sausage and curry or whatever a couple times to raise his friendship. And then you stomp through the tower with Kubfu, and then he turns into Urshifu, and then it's over. And like I felt like that was really short, and I don't know what else they could have added. I feel like there could have been more trainers fleshed out instead of just your new rival that you face, where Sword and Shield have two different DLC rivals for it. I feel like there could have been something else added. I don't know what it was, but I guess overall I'm looking more towards the second DLC, the Crown Tundra, because that seems to have a much stronger, a much longer shelf life, I should say, when it comes to those raids. Because I could have literally, before this DLC, I could have just done wild area raids in the mainland. You know what I mean? And now I'm just doing wild area raids with a couple of returning Pokemon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. I'm definitely understanding what you're putting down, Joseph. I think from what you said to me, because like I said, I haven't played it. I feel like this is kind of just like something to be like, hey, we're gonna hold you over until the big one, but we're also gonna answer some of the fans' like cries when we announce this game by adding in these Pokemon. Like, sure. I feel like this is their kind of like rush to try to fix something that they kind of like heard from the fans that they wanted more of, which is the returning of the other Pokemon from the other Pokedex, right. Pokedexes.
No, just Pokedex. It'd be plural already.
Okay.
Just like how do you say if there's six different Pikachu in a field?
But see, you don't call. I guess you're right.
It's just Pikachu. Yeah, it's plural. Every Pokemon is a deer.
I got you. But I think this was like their kind of like step to show you that, hey, we're fixing this, and hey, we're gonna introduce a new Pokemon to you. But look, we're fixing it. We're on the rise to fixing it. So pay us $30 and have a little bit of a new experience while we hold you over until the next experience that probably much longer and much more fleshed out.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping, at least, because the way that the trailer was set up the week before the DLC came out, where they were showing off the like dungeon style raids where you go in as a group of 4 friends and you choose which like bolts of light or whatever you want to fight on your path through the end of it. Because they showed stuff from both the Isle of Armor and from the Crown Tundra, that raid dungeon thing I interpreted as being a part of the Isle of Armor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
So the fact that it wasn't there felt very, very unfortunate to me, because that was the thing I was the most excited to do with going with a group of 4 friends, and like we try to take down as many raids as we can or whatever. So I think it is good that we have this extra area, because if they just introduced the old Pokemon, and then there was no way for them to like be in raids, it'd be very hard to get like hidden ability versions of the Pokemon, because that's how you can get them in this generation. You get them through raid battles, hidden abilities. Yeah. So like it is good that they introduced it, because I can try. Okay, there's a 5-star Politoed raid. Like that's how I got like a Drizzle Politoed. Or there was a 5-star Gale Wings Talonflame raid that I got. So I'm like, okay, I can use this competitively. So I'm happy for that, but I haven't really gone back to it much outside of like when I'm breeding Pokemon. Like I was breeding a couple of Pokemon for competitive battles and stuff, but who knows? The other game I'm more excited about right now is Pokemon Unite, Joe.
Oh yeah, I forgot. This is the conversation that we were supposed to have.
Yes.
Yes, tell me about it.
Okay, so in what can only be described as a questionable marketing strategy.
Questionable? How questionable? Are we talking about like true or false questionable, multiple choice, or short answer?
We're talking about how Game Freak and Pokemon often get themselves into this outrage and, negative press type of questionable decisions with their marketing. That's the type of marketing I'm talking about. Like at E3 when they announced when they announced that the old Pokemon weren't going to be coming back or whatever, like seemed like you could have chose a different day to announce that. You know what I mean?
Wrong time.
Yeah. Yes. A lot about timing with Pokemon. So that the day that they announced Pokemon Snap and they showed more DLC stuff and Pokemon Cafe and Pokemon Smile and everything like that, at the end of that presentation, the president of Pokemon said that there was going to be another special announcement next week. So it was one Wednesday onto the next Wednesday. And it said, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So everyone and their mother in the community is getting all up in arms like, oh my God, we're getting Generation 4 remakes. Oh my God, we're getting Let's Go Johto remakes, because he had an Umbreon and Espeon in the background, and Ho-Oh and Lugia were there. And, like everyone... Nintendo and Pokemon let the internet's imagination run wild for an entire week, and you would assume that because this game was so big that it couldn't be included or lumped in with all of these other Pokemon games, that it had to be significant, right?
Yes, exactly.
So,
it always has, dude, it's Pokemon. It has to be significant.
Right. So there must be a reason that this game is getting special treatment in isolation from the rest of their marketing, because people like Pokemon Snap, people want to brush their teeth, so if it can't be connected to these other things, it has to be huge. So they essentially lit everyone up to think that it was this gigantic thing, like a Gen 4 remake or a new game or something like that. And then, well, it is a new game, but it's a MOBA, and it's called Pokemon Unite. and it's coming from China, created by Tencent, who, China is very big into MOBAs and that scene, and I think Pokemon, or Nintendo at least, has been trying to branch more into the Chinese marketplace. I'm personally not upset because it looked really fun. It looked like I was playing the video of it. I think it was more like Heroes of the Storm than League of Legends, but just for ease of whatever discussion, I'll say it was like if Pokemon and League of Legends had a crossover where you had like lanes and you had 5v5 characters and like you leveled up and each Pokemon had different abilities and things. So I was really hyped because obviously I watch a lot of League of Legends. Yeah, I play Teamfight Tactics all the time, like, so I really enjoy that MOBA thing, that MOBA scene, whatever. But a lot of people were outraged by this announcement because it was a 10-minute video by itself that they hyped up the previous week by saying everyone's going to want to know about this. And it's like, well, most Pokemon players don't play MOBAs, and it was very clearly like they're trying to market to the Chinese audience who are big into MOBAs. So it felt like they used the main core Pokemon fan base and their excitement and their buzz about the series that they enjoy so much to prop up this thing that most of that fan base or community is not going to appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah, because MOBA...
Excuse me.
Like, I've played League, I've played... what's it? Heroes of the Storm. It's another MOBA. I played League for a good 4 years, and I played Heroes of the Storm for a good year and a half. But I don't want Pokemon to be a MOBA. Like, when I saw it, I was like, I was like, I don't really know about this.
Okay. No,
it's like that. It's like that TikTok sound. I don't know if you are on the TikTok where it goes, I like the view. And he goes, oh yeah? You're my favorite view. And it just goes, That's how I felt like Pokemon's like, do you like this? You're my customer. You're my favorite. So do you like this? And I'm like, no. You can put that back. You can put that back in the...
Put that back in the vault.
Put that back in the Disney vault.
Yeah, Disney will buy Pokemon eventually if they have enough money for it.
Dude, can you imagine? Oh my god, the Marvel Pokemon crossover! It's the day I'm waiting for. But a MOBA in Pokemon where now instead of it being like, oh, I'm going to use Thrash and I'm going to go Jungle, it's I'm gonna fucking use my my Poliwag and I'm gonna go Bot. Like, okay, get out of here with this crap. Like, I don't want to. Okay. Pikachu's a mid. Pikachu's a mid laner. Did you know that? You got to buy all these electric type things to make all of his moves better. He's a mid laner. It's like, no, he's not.
He's a Pokemon.
He's a first gen starter in yellow. Get out of here.
Okay, but here's my counterpoint, Joe.
Your counterpoint can stop.
Okay, I actually tweeted this the day that it happened because I was excited for the game because I like MOBAs and I like watching it, but two, I actually knew two of the people in the video. There was they had like a mock battle between a bunch of Japanese players and North American players, and on the North American side were two people that I've seen at live events. So I was like, oh my god, that's Scott, and everyone was like, oh, we know them. So that was fun to see. Because they work for the Pokemon Company International, and then the other thing, I'm like, wait a second, can you imagine how amazing the patch notes are going to be for this game? Because they're going to have to say like, we decided that Charizard's Fire Blast is too strong, so we're going to lower its base power, or like Snorlax isn't working as we intended, so it's in line for a rework. Like, I'm excited for the pure insanity of reading the patch notes in this game, because I never would have thought Pokemon was going to have like meta changes and like changing stats and abilities and spells and things like that.
That will be very funny. But also at the same time, to build off of your your counterpoint, how much more legitimate? I'm not trying to say that it's not legitimate now, but how much more legitimate will the Pokemon competitive league be now that there is a MOBA to go on? Like, this adds a whole new level of competitiveness or a competitive scene because now not only can you do battles with the original Pokemon games and on the DS and the Game Boy and all the other stuff, but you now have a MOBA where you're using the Pokemon to fight against each other as a team. Like, that's going to add like a whole new thing to everything.
Right, it's definitely gonna give a wider net for Pokemon, which is exactly what they want.
Yeah, that's a whole new layer of dip to this already 7-layer dip. So now we're 8 layers deep instead of 7. And
this ain't no beefy nacho 5-layer anymore.
Yeah, this ain't no. We ain't dealing with a beefy 5-layer burrito. We've now bumped up to that 7-layer burrito. It's got that guac.
It's got the guac in it.
It's got the guac in it and the lettuce, but no one really likes the lettuce, and that's that's okay.
That's why the 5 is more popular than the 7. I think they're okay. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think there will be general interest when the game launches, which who knows how early in development it is, or whenever it's going to launch. It's going to be on the Switch.
I'm playing it right now.
Okay.
They let me in. They're like Joe Perry? Yeah, Joe Brown now.
Yeah. I'd be pretty upset if that was true. So
they actually they're letting me, Joe Brown. I forgot to tell you this. The Nintendo company actually contacted me directly, and they're like, "Don't tell Joe Brown this yet, but we want you to come and host some Pokemon competitions." And I'm like, "I know nothing about Pokemon. Like, Joe Brown is the man you want." And they're like, "No. Forget that guy."
No, you don't understand. He sucks.
We're gonna fly you out to Japan, and we want you to do all this stuff with Pokemon. And I'm like, "You got it. I'm on it." Pikachu, where's Pikachu? Is he gonna be there? Can I eat pizza with Pikachu in the back? And they're like, absolutely. I'm like, fantastic. Can't wait to not tell Joe Brown.
I would be very proud of you, actually, if that were to happen.
If that actually happened, I'd be like, I'll be like, yeah, sure, hold on, and then I'd make you pretend that you're me.
I got beard and glasses, and I'm named Joe. I think we could pull it off. We could pull off some sitcom hijinks.
We have almost the exact same backstory if you actually think about it.
Our superhero origin stories are very similar.
Yeah, our tragic origin backstories are pretty much lined up, except like after college things got a little messy. But in our backstories, like they changed drastically. But that's okay. We can
Although unfortunately, neither of our mothers' names are Martha.
My mother's name's Elaine. What's your mom's name?
Oh, okay. You want to put it out on the internet like that? Her name's Colleen.
Dude, if you look us up on the internet, you can find our parents' names. Don't even try it. Listen. Oh, hey, sidetrack. I just caught a new critter in Animal Crossing while I'm swimming around this big blue ocean.
Oh, that's a beautiful segue you just put there, Joe. So let's transition over from Pokemon to another Nintendo product in Animal Crossing: New Horizons, which has a summer update into the game where. As this article on Nintendo Life says, the update has given visitors a new way to ruin your island.
Oh, yeah? Oh, wait, I haven't read the article, so tell me how it's going to ruin my island, because now I'm scared.
Well, no, I'm guessing just jumping over in the water or whatever. I don't know.
Heck yeah, man. Get in that water. So essentially what this new patch looks like is they give you the ability to now swim in the ocean. Now, a lot of the people already playing this game was able to glitch themselves into the ocean and walk around in it, and they were able to find I believe they were able to find barriers in the ocean, but they were able to walk around and like see what's going on. And I always thought it was interesting how you could see like kind of like rock formations in the water. Well, this new patch lets you actually jump into the ocean and swim around and catch new kind of like underwater creatures. Like, while literally the entire time we've been talking, I have been swimming around and I have found a starfish, I had found a sea anemone, I found a mussel, a scallop, a pearl oyster, and the newest thing I found is a tiger prawn. And it's kind of like catching bugs, but it's in the ocean. So essentially to do this, because I had to look up how to do this because I did not pay attention when I believe it was either Isabel or Tommy. Timmy and Tommy told me when they called me on the phone when I started the game up again, was that I need to go buy a swimsuit from Nooks and Crannies and the swimsuit is in the glass cabinet where they keep the tools. So you need to like look out for what it is for it in there. I was a little disappointed because I could only get the yellow swimsuit. I wanted a cooler swimsuit, but whatever.
No, whatever. I'm not mad.
Not mad about it. Like, teal's my color, but whatever. Yellow's fine. And you got to get that, and then after you get that, you can go to any part of the ocean. I like jumping off the rocks at this point, and you can just jump right into the water and swim around and kind of like explore the outer parts of the ocean. And there is like a barrier that prevents you from leaving, like going out any further. But I saw that this is just Joe Perry thought process. I saw that and I was just like, wait, if they have that, then how do any of the fish actually get into the water around the island?
You're thinking way too deep into this Nintendo game, Joe.
Yeah, I was like, how did this great white shark swim past this netting that's around the island? And then I also thought it was funny because I'm also, as I'm swimming around, I'm also looking for fish to catch because I think I only have like 2 new fish to catch because I'm on top of my game. And I like swam around this one fish not to scare it away, and I popped up on shore and I went to go catch it. And as I caught it, it was a great white shark that came out, and I was like, this thing would have definitely killed me if this was in real life.
I did see a meme of somebody who they like photoshopped on top of like somebody using the pole to like jump over the river, and they photoshopped the shark right there also, so it looked like they were jumping right into the shark's mouth.
That's amazing.
But Joe, to answer your question on how it can ruin your island, on this article from Ryan Craddock, apparently you see now the players can dive off of the pier at the airport when arriving at someone else's island. All sorts of progress destroying shenanigans can take place. The situation has sparked a bit of a heated debate over on Reset Era, where one player has detailed the severe consequences of the update for those who like to trade with others online. Essentially, as you may know, if you regularly visit others' islands, plenty of players have opted to fence off their most precious island hotspots to ensure that visitors can't steal or damage anything of value. A visitor could, for example, trample all your flowers or shake down any bells from your money trees, and anyone you trust with a best friend status can do much more. Thanks to the new update, visitors can now simply jump in the sea and circumnavigate all of the fencing a player might have built over the past few months, reaching areas that the host never wanted them to see.
Wow. I like, as you were reading that, I was like, you can't jump off the pier. Like, there's a fence on the pier that prevents you from like doing that. And I was like, watch. And then I got up on the pier and I jumped right over the fence. And I was like, that's why you heard me just go, oh, snap.
Wait a minute. You can't jump off the Oh. That's just essentially what went through your brain right there.
Essentially, yeah. Real quick before we continue talking, I wanted to let you know, and I let Jordan know when I did this. She wasn't too impressed. But I did catch a pufferfish yesterday, and I was very excited about it.
Nice. Are pufferfish rare?
No, I was just excited.
I'm happy for you.
Thanks.
I don't know how to approach that one.
You can approach by saying it's amazing.
Have you caught all of the available fish so far?
So far, yeah, I'm on top of my game. I only need to catch 2. I only need to catch the 2. I need to catch a few of the new ones this month, and I missed one of the ones from last month.
Well, that's embarrassing.
Well, the one from last month only shows up between like 9 o'clock and 4 a.m., and I usually stop playing before 9 o'clock. Except for...
right now. Yeah.
Let me go see if I can catch him. Plus, he's very hard to catch in the river. He's an elusive jerk, and I don't like it.
I remember I was super proud. I think it was the last day of May. It was either April or May, whenever the golden trout was about to go out of style. April. Okay, so it was the last day of April, and I made a little circle thing up on my land, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try it. And I made like 20 clam shells for bait, and literally the first try, I found the golden trout, and I was like, okay, I could stop playing till May now. I was ready to spend all night trying to catch it.
Heck yeah, bro. I'm about it. I will say that there's a lot more like bugs that are harder to catch this month. Pretty much all of the beetles, um, almost all of the beetles that are like extremely rare are only going to appear on palm trees, and they're all like four-star rarities, and it's just like, oh god damn it! I guess I got to plant more palm trees, but I'm not about it.
So Joe, we're having a good time. Are
We
you
are.
are you ready to stop having a good time?
Oh, are you ready to talk about this disaster that we had before we started talking on this podcast? Like, are we ready to just okay? Before we get started, Joe Brown.
Yeah.
Before we get started, just let me do that.
Uh-huh.
Viewers, as me and Joe Brown were getting ready for this episode, we had a conversation the day before we were recording. Yesterday for us, I don't know when it's gonna be, for you guys. We were talking on the phone as I was driving home from work about
That's very dangerous.
Well, it was hands free. You were
Okay.
coming in my stereo.
Okay.
We're all about hands free here. No distractions while driving, and talking is something I do by myself anyway, so it's not a distraction. Because I'm a crazy. So, like I was saying, I'm talking on the phone with Joseph saying how much I missed him because it had been a while since we had discussed things and recorded a podcast, as all of you know. And we were talking about things to talk about, and we had talked about 3 separate things to talk about. One of them being the Hyperscape tech test that I have been granted access to, but I have yet to play because reasons. And
okay.
We were going to talk about another topic that I think we ended up discussing later that we probably aren't going to talk about today anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So as me and Joseph were sitting here trying to figure out what we were going to discuss on the podcast, we were looking up separate articles on new things that were happening in the gaming community and all this other stuff, and Joseph found this article and then proceeded to lose his mind slightly.
Slightly.
As he read through it, in which I then said, okay, before we get started, I'm going to the bathroom. And as I came back, Joe had fallen deeper. Dang it, I just scared that bug away. Had fallen deeper into insanity and had exploded inside of this chat by himself as I was going. So, this is a forewarning for all of you that he might explode again in this conversation. Okay, Joseph, I have now prepped our listeners.
I think that's a very accurate description of what happened, and never read the comment section.
Yeah. And you may start the conversation. Everybody put your war helmets on because here we go.
So there's a new article posted on Polygon by Charlie Hall, who I don't know Charlie Hall from a hole in the wall, so I have no idea. On Polygon, it says he specializes in PC games, especially simulation and strategy titles, and he's an expert in tabletop game industry. He's one of the like OG senior reporters at Polygon. So he's the guy who wrote this article. This article is the $70 video game is inevitable. How the next generation of video game consoles will impact your wallet. Now, this, Joe, is a highly debated and I guess somewhat controversial discussion that has been going on for, I think, well over a decade at this point, of people saying that $60 is too low for a video game, which I think is asinine, and we can get into that. But if we start off, let's just start off. Let's get a feel. So right now, all we've been told is that there's potential for prices to increase in next generation consoles and for the games. Okay, so we're pretty neutral, right? Last week, 2K Sports announced that it would raise the price of NBA 2K21 by $10 from $59.99 to $69.99 for next generation console video games. To see all the bells and whistles on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, customers will need to pay a little more than they did the year before. The announcement caused famously opinionated game consumers to erupt on social media and online forums. Many wondered out loud if the cost of AAA console video games, after remaining constant for the last 15 years, could be going up across the board. The answer is almost certainly yes. In the nicest way possible. The way that first paragraph is phrased is downright insulting to the video game audience. To say the announcement caused famously opinionated consumers to erupt on social media and online forums instantly dismisses any of their claims that they would have. So you can already tell that this article is not actually going to be balanced in any way, and it's definitely geared towards the need to increase the price of AAA games from $60 to $70. So he is. Charlie goes later on into the article talking about how inflation has changed over time and how the price of video games have been stagnant since 2005, and even with inflation, milk and bread cost more than they did in 2005, but video games don't cost more than that, which is absurd because of the value you get. Essentially, the per hour value or the per penny value you get out of a video game based on the hours to the cost of the $60 is much higher than any other form of media. For example, a movie ticket only being 2 hours and being, say $15 to $20 nowadays, video games would be a much higher value, and you can definitely have that discussion. And you might very well be true that video games do provide a higher, per buck value than a movie could in a movie theater. But I guess the crux of the argument is that through inflation and through steadily increasing costs of what actually costs to make a video game, it is inevitable that the base $60 is not sustainable. Something that miraculously has been said for over a decade now, yet still companies are able to make billions and billions of dollars every single year off of the $60, even though $60 is an unsustainable price. So it seems a little hypocritical if you're asking me. He interviews Yoshio Osaki, who's the president and CEO of IDG Consulting, and they have a little back and forth talking about how, let's say in 2005, if you were making a AAA game, a quote-unquote top 10 title, you were looking at development costs between between $25 million to $35 million. That same top 10 game in 2020 could cost publishers and developers upwards of $75 million to $100 million. So that extra money that it costs needs to be made up somewhere else. And sure as hell, the video game industry has found somewhere that they can make up on those losses. Do you know what that is, Joe? Microtransactions. The absolutely insulting notion in this article that the NBA 2K20, one of the largest games that are one of the biggest offenders of the microtransaction wave that we've had this console generation, that game needs to be raised by $10 when it's of course a sports game, which every year they just add new sweat animations and change the camera angles and sell you the repackaged game with players on new teams and a couple of different game modes when it's really the same thing. That's the game you want to stick your flag in the sand about, how AAA games need to cost more? Are you serious?
They need to cost more, Joe. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm 100% on board. I would love to spend more money on things that don't need to be spent.
So now that 2K21 is going to cost $70, they're going to get rid of microtransactions, right? They're not.
No. They're gonna. No, it's me, your friend, liar. I'm definitely telling you.
Well, did you know? Actually, consumers should be happy if video games cost $80, because technically through inflation, $59.99 would be $81. Or $59.99 in 2005 would be $81 in 2020. So if you paid $80 for a video game, you should suck it up and enjoy it, because it's still technically under inflation.
Dude, yeah, exactly. What are you talking about? That makes 100% sense.
And you know what? Some of these costs come from these gigantic corporations and video game companies that have increased their budgets to $75 million to $100 million. You know what some of those costs come from?
What?
Oh, the crunch of their employees, paying them 80 hours a week, and that additional overtime and double pay and holiday money and working 6 days a week. All of those problems in the gaming industry that are currently going on with the overabundance of crunch and the mismanagement and mistreatment of their game developers. You don't think that has anything to do with the increased price of some of these AAA games, Joe?
Joe, everybody knows it doesn't. So I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody knows that there is no crunch time
So
in
Osaki,
video games.
yeah, definitely not. Definitely not in very famous games and very big companies either. Osaki has a quote here. What we're seeing there is console consumers may not be buying 5 to 8 games per year, Osaki said. They might be buying only 2 to 3 games per year, maybe maximum of 3 to 4 games per year. But they're spending more money and time in each of those game experiences. So, I'm no genius, obviously, Joe. You knew how bad I was at math and science in college. You were there. You tried to help me with my biology sometimes. I'm not the smartest. God. I'm not the smartest person in the world. Let's think here, Osaki, right? If you increase the price, and currently the consumers are buying less and less of your product at $60. If you increase your product to $70, do you think that's more likely to have people buy more games, or do you think it's less likely?
Probably less likely that people are going to buy more games.
If I was a betting man, which, sometimes I am because I buy microtransactions, and that's actually gambling, I would bet that people would be less likely to buy more games if they cost more. So why don't you tone down some of the development? Why don't you make a 25-hour game a 20-hour game and save a couple of $1 million there? Why don't you hire more indie studios the way that Sony and Microsoft have, and sell more $30 to $40 experiences, or maybe even $20, or hell, everyone's making their free-to-play games where all you make it off of is skins and season passes and everything like that. Why not go down that road instead of reselling the same sports game you've been making for 20 years and increasing the price and still having gross microtransactions? Am I wrong?
Yeah, dude, you don't know about video games. I thought we've already discussed this. You have no idea what you're talking about. I want to pay $300,000. It's going to take me 5 years to complete. And that'll be the one game that I buy for the next 5 years.
I'm sorry I'm coughing, but I'm laughing because somebody literally said that in the comments. They were like, well, there's nothing you can do because NBA signed a contract with 2K, so there's no other teams that can make a basketball game. So if 2K wanted to charge $1,000, you have to pay $1,000. And someone replied like, or people wouldn't buy it if it cost $1,000 because it's not worth $1,000. Like, what kind of stupid idea is that? Like, you have to plan. And I'm very pro-consumer. And if anyone who has listened to to this podcast over any length of time knows that I am definitely on the side of the consumer and not the corporation. So whatever opinion you want of me from that, that's totally fine. Like, you have to. In a capitalistic society, you have to price your product at a point that consumers are willing to purchase it, even if that's only 3 or 4 games. Maybe, I know I have bought more than 3 or 4 AAA games so far this year, and we're only in July, so I know that, I guess that would put us above average compared to the average consumer. Like, can you imagine, like, we grew up with Blockbuster, Joe, right?
Yeah, where you rented the game.
So many of the games that I played, like just like a random Tony Hawk, or like the first time I played Mass Effect was through Blockbuster. Like all of these games that I played as a kid, I rented Mario 64 through Blockbuster when I don't even know what I was, maybe 3 or 4, and my brother was 6. Like that was one of the first games we had. All those experiences that we had and played as video games and built that love for this medium that we have now today, 20 years later, was built because it cost like, I don't know, $8 or $9 for 2 days. I forget what Blockbuster's system was, but then you had like the monthly passes, or you could have 1 game out at a time or 2 games out, depending on, sometimes you got free popcorn, whatever. Like, I can't imagine what we have now, where there is no Blockbuster, is only buying games at full price now, and where parents are going to have to buy they're just not going to buy the $70 game for their kid, and the kid's only going to be allowed to play Fortnite.
Yeah, I feel like 2K is trying to lead this battle into this new era, but I feel like it, like as one of the commenters says, that they can't wait for this to collapse on itself and it be a total disaster. Like, I don't think a lot of people will follow suit with this because if they want to, they make more money off of their collector's editions too because a lot of people want to buy the collector's edition.
And that's another
Maybe,
way they make a lot of money, from all the digital collector's editions and all the, the statues that we all keep buying.
yeah, Joe Perrion has statues all over the place. I buy statues from companies that don't even sell video games.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So like, this is something that Jim Sterling talks about all the time too, about like the absolute absurd lie that video games still cost $60 because there's all the collector's editions and the premium collector's edition and the ultimate collectors, which again 2K is one of the biggest abusers of, where they have the $60, the $70, the $80, the $100 versions of the game with different covers and different packs and different stuff that you get out of the game. Like, so when I bought 2K back a couple months ago, just because I was, I felt like I usually buy it when it's on sale.
Wait a minute, you bought 2K?
Oh, the company?
2K?
Yeah, I bought 2K. I bought NBA 2K20. Thank you for the clarification, Joe. A couple months ago, because I usually wait till it's on sale at the end of the year and get a couple of fun hours in the summer playing NBA. I bought the Ultimate Collector's Edition or something, the digital version, which was the $100 version, because it was on sale for $20. So the sale of the Ultimate Collector's Edition was stronger than the sale of the base game. The base game, which is a $60 price on the PSN sale, was still over $30. Like, that's how ridiculous that this system is that you're giving me $100 version of it for cheaper than the $60 version. But so, and the first thing you see is all these microtransactions, and you can buy these different Gatorade bottles and outfits and, cool tattoos and make your character, buy him boosts and Gatorade power-ups and things like that. And every time... Really, right, and every time you're loading in, there's the Beats sponsorship and Nike and Under Armour, and like, you literally sign with a shoe deal, you sign with Beats, you sign with Gatorade, like all of this marketing and stuff, and like they still think that people only spent $60 on the game out of the millions of people that bought that game. Like, even if you wanted to play online with like the gross microtransactions that all sports games have, with all the card games where you have to buy packs and things for different players, like that all costs money. Like, you don't get that for free.
Exactly.
But but games need to be more expensive. Like, I don't know. I was just truly insulted by this article for him, who it seems like he doesn't necessarily have a background in the in the sports gaming community, so maybe it slipped his mind when he was writing this, because he was talking more theoretical about the potential price change and the inevitable price change, I would say, from $60 to $70. But like, to use to use 2K Sports as your prime example of why video games need to cost more, instead of why these microtransactions are predatory and that they're actually making billions of dollars off of post-purchase purchases, like after you've already bought the game, like, is just completely tone deaf. And for him to insult people who are upset about this by saying famously opinionated game consumers erupt on social media is like, I can't even think of strong enough words to say how upsetting it was to read this article.
But no, you were fuming at the brain, my dude.
And the worst part, I said this last time, Joe, when we talked about the PS4, when we had PS5, excuse me, when we had Dennis on and talking about the digital version, and you can go back and listen to it. Hopefully Joe remembers it. I said in that video, watch out as we get closer to these dates, because you're going to see more and more journalists talk about how great the alternative is of the digital version of these consoles, because they get their review copies for free, so they are not paying $60 or what will be $70 many of the times. Now, many people who review games still actually do purchase their own games. I'm not saying that's an everybody thing, but I'm saying somewhat of the culture of the video game industry and people who will be spewing to you that the digital version is going to be a better buy for the consumers are at best misleading, at worst lying, because it's not true. Because if you get that digital version, the only way you're going to get 2K21 is by paying $70 for it. You cannot go to Walmart on Black Friday. You cannot go to GameStop and get a rented copy or a used copy, if they're ever going to let people use used copies anymore like that. Like, if you want to buy it, you're going to have to pay $70 for it.
Well, that's just what's going to happen. Like, every time I talk to someone now and we talk about the PlayStation 5, they're like, yeah, I'm going to get the digital copy or the digital version. I'm like, I don't know if I want to get the digital version. Like, why not? Everything's going that direction. And I'm just like, well, I'd rather have a physical copy, number one.
Right.
And I can't get a deal on a digital copy unless Sony decides they want to do it, which who knows if Sony's ever going to decide they want to do that. Or 2K or whoever. Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's wrap this up, Joe, because you had one last thing you want to talk about regarding the potential price point of the PS5.
Oh yes, there have been several leaks at this point since the announcement of the PlayStation 5. One of the leaks came from, I believe it was Amazon, but it's never the American Amazon. It's always either like Europe or the UK or something, because it always ends up being in pounds or euros. The leak for the PlayStation 5 came out from them, which ended up saying that the the digital version will be $400 and the disc version will be $500, which is what leaked originally, which surprised a lot of people, mainly due to the fact that everybody was expecting this system to be at least $600 to $700. And then another thing showed up earlier this week about how a survey was posted on a subreddit on Reddit. I don't remember which one, I'm sorry, discussing a survey that was sent out to some people about price points for the PlayStation 5. And of course, these price points were given in pounds. Because I guess the person who's taking it is in the UK, and the price point when converted to US dollars ended up being somewhere between the digital version being somewhere between, I think, like $350 to $375, and then the disc one being about the same thing, $450 to $475. So these price points seem too good to be true, as like some of this article was saying. It could be just a marketing team trying to get a base idea of how much money people would be willing to pay for these consoles, because if the article went on to say, mainly due to the fact that if Sony was to sell at these low points, that they would not be making any money off of the PlayStation 5. Like, I believe I can't remember what they said it was, but they would either be making only $30 off of it, or like nothing, because of how little the amount of money they'd be making,
right,
compared to how much.
But that's how every console is. That's how every console has been.
No, I know.
I'm just saying the investment you're taking is that you're losing money up front because they're going to buy games that equate to making a profit.
Yes, exactly. But this is just the system, not the games.
Right.
But yeah. So those are the little things that I've heard about the PlayStation 5 coming up. We all are I believe we are pro PlayStation 5 in this group.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting the PS5. The only way, like, I might go halvesies on an Xbox if Halo Infinite is Xbox Series X exclusive, but I'm hoping it's going to be on the PC.
Microsoft has already come out saying that every game that they come out with Xbox exclusively will be on the PC. And you want to know how I also know that they're going to be doing that? Is that Xbox launched a brand new app for the computer that acts just like the Bethesda the GOG, the Epic Game Store, like all similar to what Steam is. They made their own version of it, and it's in beta testing right now because you can buy games straight from it.
Then I have no reason to get the Xbox. I'm just gonna get the PS5 and play with Miles Morales.
Miles Morales, my boy. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to add, Joe?
No, I don't know. I mean, it's tough with like online rumors and leaks and price points and stuff because how many games have said they were releasing on December 31st of a year, like, so it's tough. It seems reasonable, I would say, if it ends up being true that these are the prices. I would argue that they are pretty reasonable and comparable to what the PS4 was, so I don't think it should be too much outrage caused. I wouldn't imagine, if when those rumors are like, oh, it's going to be $800 to counteract how expensive the hardware is or whatever, like, then there'd be cause for concern. But currently off of that news, I don't think it'd be too much of a reason to flip out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it then. Thank you for joining us for another great episode of Cup of Joes. I've been your host, Joe Perrion, accompanied by my best friend, Mr. Joseph Brown, and we'll catch you around next time on another episode of Cup of Joes.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go spend $70 on a AAA game.
Oh, me too. Bye.